In this video, we're going to be reviewing how to become a Roth IRA millionaire. I'm really excited about this. So jumping right in, I want to share a couple of things that we'll cover. First, we're going to be talking about how to leverage a Roth IRA to retire with a lot of money. Second, we're going to be talking about how to become a tax-free millionaire. And some of you might be wondering, why should we listen to Fiona? Well, I've got a couple of pointers here for you. As I said, I've helped 453 millionaires build wealth. I helped manage 600 million, and I became a millionaire at 27 with the same exact strategies I'm going to teach you. On top of that, I went to Harvard, MIT, and I'm a CFP, having studied over 11,000 hours in finance and obviously practiced for 7 years working with these millionaire clients. Now, let's actually get to it. I want to, before I even jump in, talk about how basically investing in a Roth IRA is like a seed that grows into a big and beautiful tree over time. And then at some point you can actually harvest the fruit from this tree and 100% is yours. So if you plant a small little seed right here and you water it over time, it's going to germinate into this beautiful tree. And guess what? That is how your Roth IRA should be considered. It's not going to grow into millions right away. Don't expect that. But over time, you will start seeing a difference. And I'm actually going to show you that here in today's video. So first, let's get started. A couple of things that I think are really important to understand is contribution limits, right? So what does that mean? How much money can you actually put into a Roth IRA? Now, the two things that I want you to focus on are right here, these green highlighted pointers. These refer to Roth IRA, which is what we're talking about today. All of the other accounts, these are retirement accounts that are available to you, but we're not focusing on that today in today's video. Notice another thing. The second highlighted point here says age 50 plus, which means if you're over age 50, you can actually add a catch-up contribution, which means your total could be $8,000, right? So you can put in $8,000 per year in 2025 at least into a Roth IRA. Now, if you're under age 50, you can put in $7,000. So if you are, anywhere between age 18, for example, and age 49, your maximum is 7,000. If you're over 50, you can put in 1,000 extra to 8,000 total. This is just how much money can you put into your Roth IRA. Why are you limited on how much money you can put in? Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, you can only put in this much money because of the tax benefits that you get with a Roth IRA, and we'll get to that in a moment. Now, moving on. We actually want to take a look also at contribution eligibility, and this is something that we will get back to here in the future. So we're not done yet with contribution eligibility. But what does this mean? It means who's actually able to contribute money to a Roth IRA? Is anyone able to contribute? Well, here are the rules. You have to have, first of all, earned income. And again, we'll talk about this in a later section, but you need to have earned income. And specifically, you need to meet the income limits, okay? So income limits, what does that mean? It means if you earn too much money, you actually can't contribute to a Roth IRA. So how much money can you actually make or less than in order to be eligible to contribute? Look right here. It depends on your tax filing status, okay? That's what this means, tax filing status. Maybe you do have a partner. Maybe you feel like you're married, but legally you're not married. If you're legally not married, you are single, right? It's all about the legalities of this. If you're single, then you can make a full contribution, meaning if you're under age 70, you could make $7,000. So you can make up to a $7,000 contribution to your Roth IRA if you make less than $150,000, right? And the same thing goes if you're married filing jointly. If you both make less than $236,000, you can make the full contribution. Then there's something known as a partial contribution, as you see here. A partial contribution is essentially a phase out. So that means if you make between 150, if you're single, right? If you're filing single and taxes, if you make between $150,000 and $165,000, then there's a certain formula, which we're not getting in today, but this formula is available for you online. And it essentially says you can't contribute the full 7,000, so you can't do the full 7,000, but you can do a range between 0 all the way to like $6,999. And based on how much you make, that formula will determine for you how much you can actually contribute. Same goes for married filing jointly. Again, if you two are making between $236,000 and $246,000, there's a certain formula that essentially takes into account how much money you both make. And then based on the formula, it'll say, okay, you guys can contribute between somewhere in this range. If you're interested, make sure you double check on this formula. Now, let's keep going. One of you might be asking, how can I actually max out my Roth IRA? In other words, how can I put in the most amount of money into my Roth IRA? Well, we already know that yearly it's $7,000. Again, this is under 50, right? So if you're less than 50, you can put in $7,000 a year. Monthly, that translates to $585, which is somewhat doable, right? Depending on your income level. If you break that down further, that's $135 a week. And then finally, on a daily basis, once again, $20. So if you break that down, $20 a day, I think sounds pretty doable, right? $20 a day, maybe that could be like one dinner or one lunch, or maybe a Starbucks if you're really into Starbucks. If you look at it this way, if you break it down, it's absolutely doable to get to this $7,000 yearly maximum contribution limit. Of course, this is not where the story ends, so let's keep going. Imagine if you invest this money into the S&P 500. Now, why do I like the S&P 500? The S&P 500 is essentially the 500 biggest companies in the United States. And that's also where I invest the majority of my money in too. So how do you take a look at this? If you invest $7,000, again, this is the maximum, for 30 years, right? So I drew this graph for 30 years. Here's the years. And you keep investing the $7,000. Now, mind you, your money, so this here is your money. The purple line means your actual money that you earned, and you invest it in the S&P 500. Over time, so over this 30-year time frame, you would have invested, so your money, right, would be about $210,000 over 30 years. Over 30 years. But if you invest it, which is the key, you invest it, you put it into the S&P 500 and let it grow, it's actually going to total to about $1.3 million over a 30-year time frame. Of course, there's many different assumptions built into this, but again, if you think about it, if you just contribute this maximum of $7,000 every single year and you invest it, your total, so this is the growth, the green line equals the growth plus your contributions, and overall growth plus contributions is $1.3 million over 30 years. Again, many assumptions built into here, but this is roughly how it'll look like. So what is the key lesson here? I think the key lesson is, one, you want to invest, right? Invest in the stock market. Okay, perfect. And then the second key lesson is you want to invest consistently, right? And what I mean by consistently is time. You guys might have heard the saying, it's all about time in the market, not timing the market, right? We don't want to time the market. We want to have time in the market. And this graph here shows that, right? Over 3 decades, if you're consistently investing, especially in a Roth IRA, you can have this. And the best thing is the $1.3 million is going to be tax-free if it's in a Roth account, right? So in other words, you actually get the $1.3 million. If it's in a non-Roth account, then oftentimes you're actually going to get 1.3 million minus the taxes that you owe, right? On the 1.3 million growth, on the growth of the 1.3 million, the growth is calculated by looking at what you get here versus what you actually put in. So all of this is growth. And then, of course, the end result is actually going to be less than $1.3 million money in your pocket. So as you can see, that is the key. The key is in a Roth IRA account or in any Roth account, your ending value is actually going to be your money. It's not going to be your money minus taxes that you owe on the growth. It's actually yours, and that's the beauty of it. Okay, let's keep going. This is super powerful, as you can see, because this is actually your money, again, tax-free, but only 10% of people in America utilize the Roth IRA. It might have become more popular, but at the time when I was looking up the statistic, it's a whopping 1 in every 10 people, and hopefully we can bump this up. And I'm going to show you some case studies that actually illustrate the absolute power of a Roth IRA. So let's get into it. First of all, I want to show you how this guy here, Mark R. Levchin, built a $95 million tax-free Roth IRA. You read that right. It's tax-free. What does that mean? It means he does not have to pay a single penny on the $95 million. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you and I are going to be able to make $95 million. Maybe, but chances are that's probably not going to be us, which is okay. But the point is, whatever wealth we do end up accumulating in our Roth IRA account will be, right here, tax-free, right? Of course, you have to follow several rules, which we'll get into later. But the point is, you can absolutely do it. How did he do it? He put shares, 3.1 million shares, into his Roth IRA account. And that's how they grew. Over time, these shares grew in value, and that's why he got the 95 million tax-free benefit. Let's keep going to another example. This guy, Peter Thiel, very popular guy, billionaire, right? We know some of us have heard about him. He accumulated over $5 billion in a Roth IRA. What does that mean? His heirs and he himself, if he decides to tap into the money, it's all tax-free. It's absolutely tax-free. Why? Because it's a Roth IRA. So again, these here are like pretty extreme examples, but the key lesson that I want you to take home from it is that, again, tax-free. He will not have to pay taxes on this $5 billion. Why? Because it's in a Roth IRA. Now, you might be wondering, okay, Fiona, how do you actually get $5 billion in here if you only can do $7,000 annual contributions? The thing is, oftentimes these investors or company founders, right, they have these things called startup shares, right? So they have a company and, there's a special type of Roth IRA, which we won't get into now. It is a Roth IRA though. And you can actually put shares of a company into a Roth IRA. So if you're starting a company and right now, the company shares are maybe worth, $100, you can certainly put in, 70 shares. And over time, these shares will grow, so 70 shares equals $7,000. And over time, these shares, assuming your company is successful, can grow. Because they're already in your Roth IRA, it doesn't matter because you put in $7,000 today, they can grow over time. And maybe in 5 years, your company is worth $5 billion. That would be pretty fun, wouldn't it? And if it is worth $5 billion, then just like in this example, it's tax-free. So that's generally how they were able to do this. So with that, let's keep going and actually talk about some of the rules that we have to pay attention to if we decide to open a Roth IRA. So first, for everything, tax-free withdrawal, it's really important to take your money out of your Roth IRA after age 59 and a half. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you put in, let's go back to this chart up here. If you put in this $210,000, right? $210,000. Let's say if you're age 40 and you take out the 1.3 million because at this point it actually grew to 1.3 million. If you take out the full 1.3 million at age 40, you're going to be owing not only taxes on the growth. Again, the growth is the difference or the spread between this purple arrow and the green arrow. So the difference between 210 and 1.3 million, you're going to be owing taxes plus a 10% penalty. Okay, so again, we do not want to do this. Why do we not want to do this? Because again, you don't want to be spending money on taxes and penalties, which is why typically the key is to take money out after 59 and a half. Contributions are limited. We already spoke about that, right? So we said about 7K if you're under 50 years old. And then we said $8,000 if you're over 50 years old. Now, the thing is, keep in mind These numbers are not static. What does that mean? They increase as inflation increases. So just keep that in mind. Next up, withdrawals must be taken after a 5-year holding period. So what does that mean? It means when you put money in, let's say you put in $100 today, okay, and you invest it. Okay. And then let's say in 5 years from now, so 5 years later, that $100 grows to, I don't know, $1,000, all right? And then you decide to take money out. You can't take out, you are unable to take out money from this account until the 5-year clock stops. So there's this thing called a 5-year clock in a Roth IRA. Now, some of you might be wondering, okay, so this is the catch. You can't actually take money out. The thing is, you can't take money out on any earnings or growth, right? So earnings or growth. So what is the growth in this situation? The growth is $900, right? So you can't take out $900. You could always take out your principal contribution. That's what this is called, your principal contribution, which is essentially the same thing as saying the amount of money that you contributed, right? That you put into the Roth IRA. So you can always take this money out. Why? Because you already paid taxes. You already paid taxes on this money, okay? Because when you put money into a Roth IRA, your taxes, you're already paying taxes. That's why you get the tax benefit on the back end, right? You don't have to pay taxes on any of the growth. So you can certainly take money out, whatever you contributed, that's okay to take out. But any earnings or growth you cannot take out until after this 5-year clock has ended. So if today is January 1st, 2025, you should at minimum take your money out on January 2nd. I would just be double sure 2030. Okay, so you want to have 5 year plus like maybe 1 day or something like that, just to be doubly sure. So that is what I would say. These are 3 very important points. There's more, but these are the 3 most important points when it comes to Roth IRA rules. Moving on. There are exceptions, as there are always. There's a lot of exceptions, but I'm going to list a few. One exception is disability. If you do have a disability, then you might be able to take money out early without facing taxes or penalties. Another exception, which is pretty common, is if you're a first-time homeowner and you're buying a house, up to $10,000, you can actually take the money out of the Roth IRA. So this is okay as well. There are a couple of additional exceptions, but I'm not going to go over everything now for the sake of time. If you don't follow these rules, I thought this was a pretty funny meme, dun dun dun, then you will owe taxes, okay, possibly, and you'll owe a 10% tax penalty. So that's not good. Yikes. Okay, we want to avoid that if possible. So like I said, there are exceptions. We already spoke about a few. Exception number 1 is called a qualified distribution. What's a qualified distribution? Again, if you want to have the full list, Google it. It's all there. But to go over this in brief, there is not going to be a 10% penalty, tax penalty, right? So it's 10% penalty for taking out, for doing IRA rollovers. So if it's an IRA rollover, is basically moving money from one IRA to another IRA. But you physically do not ever get receipt. Like your bank account does not actually get a check, right? It shouldn't get a check. Let's put it that way. It goes from one IRA entity for your benefit to another IRA entity for your benefit, but you never actually get to deposit the check in your bank account into cash and you can spend it as you want. That doesn't happen. So this is an example of a time when you actually don't have to pay any taxes or penalties or anything like that. IRA rollovers are pretty common. Death, if you pass away, money can be taken out. And if you are also the heir to an IRA, there's general rules there, and you generally can take the money out too. It depends on the type of IRA, and there's many other rules, but in general, death is another exception. Disability, if you undergo a disability, that is another exception. We already talked about the home purchase up to $10,000 is okay to take money out. And then health insurance premiums while unemployed, that's another exception. So again, if you're unemployed and you don't actually have access to health insurance benefits, you can take money out. Education costs, you can take some money out, and unreimbursed medical expenses if they're greater than 7.5% of your adjusted gross income. These are all additional exceptions. Again, we're getting into the nitty gritty, and I don't think we have time for that. So make sure you Google it if you do have questions, but these are just some very generalities for not having to pay this 10% penalty. Moving on, exception number 2, backdoor Roth IRAs. This here is something that the wealthy people, the millionaires that I helped, and myself, not gonna lie, love. Absolutely love this strategy. A backdoor Roth IRA, I found this really cool image and I want to briefly walk you through it. It's essentially a strategy to get money into a Roth IRA, if you remember correctly, if you actually earn more than the required income. So if you're single or if you're married filing jointly, and you earn more than the contribution eligibility limits, if you remember, it was about 150 and like 236,000 or something like that per year. If you earn more than that, you can still contribute to a Roth by doing this thing called a backdoor Roth IRA. How do you do it? 5 simple steps. Number 1, contribute to a traditional IRA. If you remember, a traditional IRA, when you put money into it, you basically can get tax deductions. This is a traditional IRA. However, in this case, you basically want to open up a shell traditional IRA if you don't have one yet. If you do have additional traditional IRAs open already, okay, that's okay. But there's something called the pro rata rule that we want to pay attention to down the road, which I'll go over here in a second. But anyway, contribute money to a traditional IRA. So this is where you can contribute. I'm going to zoom in here. You can contribute the $7,000. As we were talking about, this is the annual contribution limit, or the $8,000 if you're 50 and older, to a traditional IRA, right, for yourself. And so this here is the contribution step. The next step is converting the traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. The word convert sounds scary, but honestly, it's literally just a very quick click of the mouse. That's it. What does it mean? It means you literally just move your money once it's in the traditional IRA, your $7,000, over to a Roth IRA. So this here is a traditional IRA. You move it over to a Roth IRA. That's literally it. So you're literally just transferring money from one bucket to the next bucket. That's it. It's not that exciting. Here's the key. You do not invest your money in a traditional while it's in the traditional IRA, assuming you want to convert it. Why don't you want to invest your money while it's sitting in the traditional IRA before you convert it? The reason why is because if you invest your money and if it does have earnings and growth, then you'll run into a lot of tax issues because you'll likely be converting the growth and the earnings in the traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. It'll be a tax and accounting nightmare. So you ideally don't want to invest the money while it's in the traditional IRA before you convert it to a Roth IRA. And ideally, you want to do it, as this says, within 2 to 3 days. Honestly, I would say same day. So literally the second you contribute to a traditional IRA, I would move it to a Roth IRA, same day. So there's literally no accounting error. There's not even a chance to earn interest. Something might happen, to you or your family in a good way, right? I'm talking in a positive way to your family. Maybe you found out you won the lottery, in which case this probably won't be an issue, or you found out you're going on a trip or you have a stressful work meeting or something like that and you forget about converting. Do it the same day. Block off an hour or 2 hours and get it done. Convert it right then and there. Which brings us to step 3. Watch out for the pro rata rule. What does this mean? I'm not an accountant, but I'm going to speak in very general terms. It means if you have multiple IRAs, meaning you have a traditional IRA, maybe you have a simple IRA or a SEP IRA, as you can see, there's a ton of different IRAs out there, then the balance of these IRAs, meaning the amount of money you have in all of those IRAs, ideally should not really, it's going to cause a lot of complications if you convert 7,000 to a Roth, but you have an existing balance elsewhere. Okay. If you have an existing balance elsewhere, then that is where the pro rata rule comes into play. And again, it's kind of an accounting nightmare. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but it can become very complicated if you have existing balances outside of your only traditional account. And by existing balance, I mean traditional balances. So if you have a traditional IRA that is equal to $0 because you've converted everything, but then you have a SEP IRA, that has like $50,000 in it, that is what I mean by an existing balance. And then that would cause the pro rata rule to come into effect. Again, I'm not an accountant. Don't ask me the specifics. If this is you, if you do have other balances out there, make sure you read up on it before you make a contribution. Call an accountant if you have to. The point is, know that the pro rata rule exists and know that it can mess up your tax picture. I don't mean it's going to prevent you from making a conversion, but I do mean that it can make your accounting situation a lot more difficult because it'll have to track the conversions and the existing traditional values and so on and so forth. I'm getting confused just talking about it. Again, talk to an accountant if you do think that you fall in this situation. Finally, step number 4, you'll have to fill out this form. If you do have your own accountant, make sure you let them know that you made a conversion. Accountants normally don't know stuff off the top of their heads that a conversion was made. So make sure you tell them you converted and they can fill out this form for you. Otherwise, if you are your own accountant, then make sure you fill out this form. And then finally, ideally, do it again for the next year, assuming that you also, again, don't qualify to be eligible for the contribution because your income is too high. Now, one thing that a lot of people forget is once you actually make the conversion, like after converting, you actually want to invest, right? After converting, you want to invest your money. You don't just want to convert and then leave the money in cash. What's the point of all of that? You don't want to do that. That's not the point, right? Of doing this entire, step-by-step process and potential accounting nightmare. When you convert, you want to invest. That is the whole point, right? Because when you invest, then it can grow tax-free. So that's really why we're going through all of this, because our goal is long-term, you won't have to pay money on the growth. Exception number 3 is early contribution withdrawals. So again, keyword here is contribution. How do you qualify to actually make a Roth IRA contribution? We already talked about this, the numbers, but let's actually talk about what do these numbers mean, because they all refer to something called earned income, meaning tips, wages, salaries, bonuses, self-employment income. If you make $7,000 or more, you can contribute up to $7,000 of your earned income. Earned income does not include investment income, dividends, interest, not included. Rental income is a big one. Many people think if you have rental income, yeah, you can contribute. No, you cannot. If you only live on rental income, that is not earned income, which means you cannot contribute to a Roth IRA. You have to have earned income. Social Security benefits does not count. Unemployment benefits, again, unemployment is not earned income because you're unemployed, so does not incorporate Roth IRA eligibility. Another rule here, income phase outs. We spoke about this earlier, right? Does this look familiar? Again, we spoke about how the phase outs happen if you earn between these two brackets. And now the burning question. I hope you like my little fire. I was very proud of doing this. When is a Roth IRA actually a good option for you? And here's a couple of tips. One, if you're at the beginning of your career and you're probably in a low income bracket, meaning you can afford to actually spend taxes on the contributions that you're making to your Roth IRA. Like you're okay paying taxes on your contribution. If you're in a higher income tax bracket, chances are you probably want to lower your income by making a deductible contribution, right? Deductible would go to a traditional IRA account, for example. Second, if you're expecting to retire in a higher tax bracket. So again, this comes down to the idea of this is like a tax bracket gamble. A Roth IRA is a tax bracket gamble. Where do you expect tax brackets to be in the future? Chances are they're going to be higher, and I have a graph here in a second to show you where they are today, because they are at pretty low lows in the modern time, and the expectation is that it's only going to go higher. Why? Because the United States has a pretty big, deficit. So how do you pay for the deficit? In part by raising taxes. So chances are you will be paying more in taxes. So that's why a lot of people will think about it and say, okay, I'm happy taking the tax hit now. In other words, pay the taxes now And then, in the future, I'm going to guess, I'm going to gamble, right? Kind of gambling that taxes will be higher and I won't have to pay. The taxes in the future, right? That's kind of the thought process there. Okay, and then step number 3 is you're okay paying taxes on contributions today. Again, this comes down to that point. Are you okay doing it today versus in the future? And here's the image that I wanted to show you, which is tax rates over the past century. And I think this does a really good job. First of all, I just want to make sure that we understand that this here is showing the marginal tax rate. So marginal is the highest, essentially, right? So this highest tax bracket is like in which tax bracket does your last dollar fall in. How the tax brackets are allocated typically changes between administrations. So each administration might have, right now it's 37%, but it could change to 39 or 40 or 31, right? It just depends on the administration. And this here shows the lowest marginal tax rate for the lowest tax bracket. And as you can see, over time, these are some pretty big events up here. You can see how tax rates, the highest marginal tax rate, have increased. And one was, I don't know what this is, like 90%, right? So this is around 90%. That was really high. It says it right here, 94% during World War II. So really high tax rates. And now, we're at a top tax rate of, I think it's 37%, if I'm not mistaken. So, there's a huge difference. And again, as you can see, we are at pretty low lows when it comes to tax rates, top tax brackets. There was a lower period here and there was a lower period here. So there were only twice in history where tax brackets, the top tax bracket was this low. And the same thing if we're looking at lowest tax brackets, right? I mean, again, here they were really low. And then now we're here in the 2000s, right? So again, they're at pretty all-time lows. It's not the lowest ever, but it is part of the lowest. Like it is pretty low. So what does that mean? Chances are they're going to go up. So you probably want to take advantage now of the low tax rates. But again, we unfortunately don't have a crystal ball. We can't look into the future. I wish we could. But this is the thought process that goes into it. And then depending on how you see taxes move, that's when you can start making a decision. Hey, is a Roth IRA really the right choice for me, paying taxes today in exchange for not paying in the future? Or maybe should I just take the upfront tax deduction today because I don't know what's going to happen in the future? Those are the two thought processes that go into the decision of whether or not you should contribute to a Roth IRA. I personally am of the decision that it does make sense to contribute to a Roth IRA. I personally think that tax rates will go up in the future. I do see myself being in a higher tax bracket, and I'm okay paying taxes today. And I've been investing in my Roth IRA for over a decade now. So for me, it makes perfect sense. I don't want to pay a single penny in taxes on the growth in my Roth IRA. So I'm going to stick to the rules. I'm going to keep investing. And then in the long run, in a couple of decades from now, whenever I retire, I expect to not have to pay taxes on this money. So that's my thought process. But again, I've weighed the pros and cons quite intensely. And that's what I hope you can do too after this video. And so finally, if you found this video helpful, then please do 3 things. First, please like and share to help more people if you found this helpful. Second, I'd love for you to just subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Instagram. It's at the__ MMW. So really fun stuff, fun content there. And then also join the Millennial Money Woman newsletter. I think this is really fun. You get exclusive tips, strategies, and then yes, you get videos of me talking. I sometimes do videos for my newsletter audience exclusively where I talk about it, certain topics, and again, it's just for my newsletter audience. So make sure you join the newsletter. And again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And your bank accounts will definitely thank you later. Thank you so much. All right. Take care, guys.